Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to Common English Mistakes. Don't just learn, improve. So today we're going to look at a mistake I heard someone make with reflexive pronouns, like yourself. Specifically, a verb preposition reflexive pronoun phrase. We'll look at what these are, when to use them, also the less common and therefore more difficult reflexive pronouns, and finally some useful phrases, verbs which are often used with reflexive pronouns. So anyway, the mistake is up here. I've already been to Japan, but I want my wife to see it by herself. So just pause the video, try to correct that phrase. And well done if you said, I want her to see it for herself, meaning see or experience something firsthand rather than see it on TV or be told about it. We also have a similar phrase with experience something for yourself. For example, we all know what the Northern Lights look like. They're very beautiful, but you probably have to go and experience it for yourself to get the full experience. So that's see, do something for yourself. If you say by yourself, as we've seen in other videos, it means on your own or alone. I went to the park by myself. So in each of these sentences, we're using a reflexive pronoun because the subject and objects are the same thing. I myself, you yourself, he himself, she herself, and it itself. Generally, I find students can use these correctly and we don't have to study them that much. Where students have a few more problems is with the less commonly used reflexive pronouns. For example, we, ourselves. There aren't many contexts when you would have to use these. The example I give is nicknames for groups of people, for example, in a big city. I'm from London and we call ourselves Londoners. Similarly, talking about other people, they themselves. So, for example, people from Rio in Brazil call themselves cariocas. The last one is they themselves when talking about a singular. Students are always a bit confused by this, but remember we use the pronoun they when it's ambiguous, could be both a man or a woman. For example, asking a question, do you know anyone who looks at themselves in the mirror? Or maybe you see an ambulance and you say, oh dear, someone must have hurt themselves. One person, but could be a man or a woman. So that's all of the reflexive pronouns we're going to need. Let's now look at some verbs which are commonly used with them, which are going to be useful for you. First up, I would say is hurt, as we saw, and cut. Technically, we can do these to other people, but I think most of us are nice, so when we do these verbs, it's to ourselves. So, you could say, I cut myself chopping an onion, or John hurt himself skiing. Hurt himself, another way to say get injured. So a couple which might be useful when talking about children. We have dress yourself, which means get dressed. Obviously, though, most of the time we just say get dressed. I get dressed in my bedroom. You're going to use dress yourself to emphasize the person did it on their own without any help. So it's useful for a child to say, our son is 3 and he can already dress himself. Doesn't need to be to talk about children though. Maybe you could say, when I broke my back, I couldn't dress myself for 6 months. You're emphasizing that you couldn't do it without help. And then again, talking about kids, behave yourself behave in a correct and proper way. Often I heard as a child, be quiet and behave yourself. Again, context-wise, I would use this just with kids probably. Next up, to do fun things to avoid getting bored, entertain or amuse yourself. Basically the same, I would just say maybe amuse yourself is more related to humor and funny things. So for example, I had 3 hours to kill in the airport, so I entertained myself in the airport bar, or the children amused themselves by making funny faces at each other. And then a few related to effort and work. Apply yourself, meaning work very hard, concentrate a lot. I have exams next month, so I really have to apply myself. Then challenge yourself, go further than what is required. So for example, when you learn a language, I think you should try to challenge yourself. And similar to that, push yourself, meaning make a big or the maximum effort. So for example, the last 10 kilometers of the marathon were very difficult and I really had to push myself. And then a couple of useful ones for preparation. When we prepare for something, generally I would just use the verb prepare. So he prepared for the marathon by running twice a day. But then if you say prepare yourself, means to make yourself ready for a difficult situation. And I would say this is more talking mentally. So he prepared himself mentally for the competition. And then there's acquaint yourself, which means do some light studying so you know and become familiar with something. So for example, I think when you start a new job, you should acquaint yourself with the company rules. You don't have to learn them in depth, just make sure you know more or less what you can and can't do. And then a couple talking about negative feelings to yourself. Blame yourself, say or think something is your fault. For example, the goalkeeper blamed himself for the loss. And a useful phrase is be hard or be too hard on yourself. Be critical or overly critical to yourself. So for example, you shouldn't be too hard on yourself if you make a mistake. We all do this. And finally, a useful one for learning a language, immerse yourself, be completely involved in or surrounded by something. So, people always say the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it, like this example sentence. So anyway, explanation over. I'm sure there's some useful language for you there that you can learn and use in the future. And if you haven't done so already, do make sure to like, subscribe, and maybe share the video with others. I'll have a short video coming out every day and a longer one like this coming out more or less every week. But anyway, when you're ready, let's practice and improve. Just pause the video and put a verb phrase from today's lesson into the gaps with the appropriate reflexive pronoun. Remember, you might have to change the form of the verb, past, verb, ing, etc. And well done if you said my train was delayed and I had to entertain or amuse myself at the station for 3 hours. I'm sometimes too hard on myself if a lesson doesn't go well. People in my city call themselves Parisians. Here, even though it's your city, as the subject is people, it does sound more natural to use themselves. Then I had to apply myself in my final year of university. Before I go to a new country, I acquaint myself with the language, learn a few phrases, and I've seen New York in lots of movies, but I would like to see it for myself. Could also say here, go there for myself, experience it for myself. So now just pause the video and write, say, or discuss the same sentences for you. And finally, today's question: which famous place would you like to see for yourself? So do write your answers in the comments, guys. It is a useful phrase and it's a good opportunity to practice the language. Anyway, I hope that was useful for you and you're going to be more accurate using reflexive pronouns and know a few more phrases. Other than that, I'll see you for another video in the next couple of days. So until next time, see ya.